Hey guys, tonight we slip into a small shop at the edge of a narrow lane. The sign out front creaks. Inside, the air is thick with the sense of spice, smoke, and vinegar. Candles tremble. Glass jars glow like little moons along the wall. A mortar taps like a heartbeat. You stand in the doorway and think, this feels cozy and just a tiny bit dangerous. It is, because tonight the remedies are strange, the ideas are old, and if you tried some of them in real life, you probably won't survive this. We are time traveling by whisper. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. Please let me know in the comments where you are listening from and what time it is there. I love seeing the map come to life. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You step past the threshold. The floorboards sigh. The apothecary smiles without looking up. He knows your shoes, your cough, your coin. The room smells like pepper and orange peel. And then the vinegar hits sharp and clean. Clears the nose. It stings the eyes in a friendly way. Little braziers keep herbs warm. A cat blinks from a high shelf like a sleepy guard. A physician waits near the back, by a table of glass phials. He lifts one. It is warm in his hand. Your sample. He tilts it toward a candle, and the flame swims through the straw yellow like a tiny fish. He swirls, slow and smooth, and watches the foam gather at the rim. He isn't being dramatic. This is his craft. Uroscopy is the word for it. In the Renaissance, this was standard. It sits right beside the big idea of the day, the four humors. You watch his face as the liquid turns. He checks color, cloud, and smell. He peeks at sediment, that thin dust that settles like snow in a globe. He notes bubbles. He listens, too, to your story about sleep and pain and wind. But the glass holds the headline. Humors rule the body, he says. Blood, phlegm, yellow bile, black bile. When they are balanced, you glow. When they slip, you droop. Simple. Simple like the weather. And just as easy to predict. He smiles at his own joke. And yes, you chuckle. Night Dr. Humor. It exists. There is a chart on the wall. A circle painted with bands of color. Saffron, straw, rose, brown, and shades in between. It is a urine wheel. It tells what each tone might mean when matched with your pulse and your tail. This is a real thing from the time, a mainstream tool as standard as a thermometer is now. Historians still debate whether most doctors used the wheel for genuine diagnosis or as a prop to calm a nervous mind. Either way, the wheel spins the same way under candlelight. It is neat. It is tidy. It makes sense until it doesn't. He holds the glass beside a clean flame. The candle shows if the mix is clear, smoky, or thick. A clear top with a cloudy bottom can indicate a cold stomach. A thick top with a thin bottom may hint at higher heat levels. That's the logic. He swirls again and levels the phial so the meniscus lines up with a mark on the glass. These bottles have a name, by the way. Metula. They are belly-shaped, easy to hold, and easy to read. And yes, somewhere out there, a glassblower brags about making the perfect pea lantern. Dream big. You notice a bowl of rosemary, cloves, and orange rinds near his elbow. He waves the herbs like a fan. The vinegar on his hands cuts the odors. It also keeps him from catching what you might have, or so he hopes. Vinegar is a kind of shield in this world. He dabs a little on the rim of the glass. You try not to think about it. He does not drink it. He only breathes it in. However, some doctors did taste in those days, especially later, to check for sweetness in certain illnesses. That is a quirky truth. By the late 1600s, a few doctors noticed sweet urine in cases of the pissing evil, or what we now call diabetes. You can stop making a face. No tasting tonight. He asks where you hurt. He checks your tongue and your nails. He puts 2 fingers on your wrist and counts. He hums a little like he is timing a song. The apothecary stirs something in a pot behind you. It smells like honey and thyme. The cat yawns. The whole room leans in, as if it wants to hear the verdict too. A messenger bursts in with another phial wrapped in cloth. The doctor doesn't blink. People often send their urine to be read without setting foot inside. It feels like trying to fix a car by the sound of a horn. But it is a system. In small towns, it is the system. The apothecary takes the bundle, logs a name, ties a tag to the glass, and sets it near the candle. He knows the drill. He can often guess the story by the color, the age of the wax, and the smell of the cork. It is half science, half craft, and a little bit of show. You lean closer as the doctor speaks. He tells you your mix looks a touch too warm. Too much choler, he says, meaning yellow bile has the upper hand. That can spark headaches, heat in the chest, a sour mouth, and a jumpy temper. You nod. He is not wrong. He suggests a light supper. He notes herbs to cool and soothe. Maybe coriander. Maybe violet syrup. He might bleed a little or not. He will see how you sleep. He writes a plan on paper that curls at the edges. And he is careful with the tone. He keeps it calm. Fear isn't medicine. He tells a tiny joke about how the stars all had a meeting and forgot to send you the minutes. You smile. Your shoulders drop. If this were a spa, it would be the kind where someone also lectures your spleen, which is exactly what you signed up for. You trace a finger along a dusty book. The pages whisper. They show pictures of flasks and color bands and tidy little notes. Historians still debate whether the urine wheel was a genuine guide or a marketing tool, whether patients truly believed in it or merely enjoyed the ritual. People are people. They like a precise map, even when the road is bumpy. The wheel gave that. The wheel said, look, we can read you like a story. He seals your file and sets it aside. He marks the time. He checks the weather. He asks how you slept the past week. He cares about patterns. That is one solid fact here. Doctors then loved patterns. They trusted charts, seasons, and cycles. They trusted the idea that bodies echo the world outside. It is a big idea. It is also a warm blanket when the night feels long. He finally hands you a paper with tidy lines, a little food plan, a drink made with barley water, a pinch of something to settle the heat, a bath that is not too hot, fresh air if the wind is kind. He draws a small symbol at the top, his personal sign. It glows like a star when you tilt it toward the candle. You tuck it into your sleeve. On your way out, the apothecary gives you a tiny pomander with lemon peel and mint. For the smell, he says. For the mood, you say thank you. The cat flicks its tail like it approves of your manners. You step into the lane with your bag of small bottles and notes, and the night breathes with you. You do not feel cured. You feel seen. Sometimes that is the first dose. You follow the lane until a striped pole leans into the night. Red spirals around white like a candy cane that went to medical school. The door is half open. Warm lamplight spills across the step. Inside, a barber-surgeon wipes a razor on a clean cloth and nods you in. The room smells like soap, hot oil, and a faint pond note you can't place yet. Iron tools hang in tidy rows. A shelf holds blue and cream jars with little holes in their lids. Something moves inside them, slow as commas in a sleepy sentence. He waves you to a chair with arms polished to a smooth finish. Fullness, he says after one look. He means your pulse feels congested and your face feels warm. Too much excess, the word of the age. Blood wants out. That is the rule here. Bloodletting is usual in this time, done for fevers, headaches, chest tightness, and even a bad mood. That is a plain, everyday fact. It reaches back to ancient books and never really leaves. He lifts one of the jars. Inside, leeches curl and ripple like ribbons. Their color is olive, with little stripes if you look closely. Hirudo medicinalis, the helpful kind. He checks their energy with a tap. They respond like sleepy pets being asked to jog. He smiles. Hungry, he says, and you try not to take that personally. Tiny vampire interns, reporting for duty. He wraps your forearm in a warm cloth first. Heat brings blood to the surface. The lamp's glow softens the room. The blade stays on its hook. Tonight is a leech night, not a lancet night. He unstrings the jar and dips a goose quill in water. He uses the quill like a little slide to guide the first leech to your skin. The mouth finds a spot and latches with a neat pop. No drama, just a tug, then a numb spreading calm. Leech saliva has a gentle numbing effect and keeps blood from clotting. People today still know the word for it, Hiridan. The second creature joins, then a third, placed along a line the barber-surgeon knows by heart. He watches color rise under each small worker. He times them by the lamp wick, not a clock. When they've had their fill, he will ease them off with a touch of salt water. He never pulls them. He says that it is rude. You laugh because yes, manners matter when someone is literally eating on you. He will not reuse these on another person tonight. Some shops do, some do not. Historians still debate whether reuse was a common practice or a rare exception, depending on the city, guild, and financial situation. You listen to the soft tap of rain on the shutters. The room has a steady hush. He tells you about leech collectors who wade into marshes at dawn with skirts tucked high. The leeches attach to their legs, and they shake them into buckets. Pays but not enough. A strange job, half fishing, half snack service. That is your quirky image for the night. Also, some folks swear by leeches like a dab of milk on the skin. Others say a bit of bread. He shrugs. They like you fine as you are. A painted bowl sits on the table. It features a crescent cutout, allowing an elbow to rest just right. Many such bowls have measure marks inside to indicate the amount of blood remaining. That detail is real. The barber surgeon uses bowls when he opens a vein with a lancet. Not tonight. Tonight is tidy. The leeches do the counting for him. Each one works like a slow siphon. You feel lightness creeping in behind the tug, like a belt notch has been loosened around your temples. He points with his chin to a case of cups, glass, brass, and a few plain horns with broad mouths. Cupping is the other hand of this practice. When the leeches drop off, he will warm a cup with a twist of flame and set it on your back. Heat eats the oxygen inside, and the skin rises to meet the vacuum. It looks a little odd, like you are growing half bubbles. It feels warm and pulling, like a firm hand insisting you relax. Spa day for mosquitoes, but with better customer service. One leech lets go, velvety and slow, and slides into a little jar he keeps just for the sated. He tips it with a polite bow. You both pretend not to notice. He blots the spot with a pad and rechecks your color. He is watching for too much pallor. He is also watching for the sigh that says your headache is unfurling. Historians still debate whether bloodletting ever truly benefited most patients or merely made them feel cared for. Some modern cases, such as iron overload, would benefit from this approach. Most do not. But here, in this room, the logic feels smooth and complete. Heat leaves. Fullness settles. You breathe easier. The mind often follows the ritual. He lights a wisp of lint in a small clamp and dips it into a glass cup, then flicks it out. He moves quickly. The cup goes onto your skin with a soft clap. The pull answers at once. He sets another, then another, working along your shoulders and down your back. Dry cupping, he says, is to draw wind and clouded humors to the surface. Wet cupping with light scratches is for days when the chest feels like a locked door. Not tonight. Tonight is gentle. You are a row of tiny skylights. He shows you a brass pump, newer than the flames. Some cups now use a hand pump to create suction without the need for fire. He likes the old way. It is simple. Fire warms. Warmth soothes. He taps one cup, and the glass sings a little note. Free ASMR, he jokes, and the sound hums through your bones. You count the breaths between each placement. The skin under each dome grows pink, then red, then a deep plum where the pull is strongest. He times the set with the steady burn of the lamp. He wipes sweat from your neck with a cloth that smells faintly of rosemary. He tells you cupping has roots in ancient Greece and in Arabic medicine, and books have carried it forward. That is true. Doctors have been clapping cups for many, many nights. Sailors, merchants, kings, and farmers all wore these circles like quiet medals under their shirts. He lifts the first cup. The skin sighs flat. He rubs the mark with oil. He works along the row, easing each seal. The room feels bigger after each release. You feel like you can breathe a few inches deeper. He tells you to drink warm water and not rush. He says your sleep will come more easily. He says not to brag about the circles at the bathhouse unless you want people to ask for your barber's name. He brings a small tin of salve, goose fat, beeswax, and herbs to cool. He smooths it over the leech kisses and the cupping rings. The touch is careful, almost shy. He wraps a clean band around your arm. He studies your face again and nods. He likes the color better. He writes a note for your pocket. No heavy meats, gentle walks, and a quiet morning. He draws a little crest on the corner, a habit he picked up from a man who could barely write but loved the look of a seal. You glance back at the striped pole on your way out. He tells you the stripes are a memory. Red for blood, white for bandage. Some poles in other lands have blue as well. He shrugs. Codes have a way of changing. Historians still debate whether the extra stripe represents veins, water, or simply patriotic colors borrowed later. Either way, the pole spins the same story in the wind. Outside, the rain has slowed to a mist. Your back feels warm and a bit buoyant, like you are walking with thin cushions under your skin. You pass the apothecary's cat, who has promoted itself to mayor of the lane. It blinks at your bandage and decides you are a person of taste. You smile and keep moving, lighter by a few careful ounces, and headed toward the next odd cure this night will offer. You round a corner and find a bench that looks like a small stage for iron stars. The tools shine in neat rows, discs with teeth, handles worn smooth by years of hands. A brass oil lamp makes them blink like patient eyes. Vinegar rides the air again, with rosemary hiding under it, like a polite friend who knows when to stay quiet. A calm surgeon in a dark cap brushes dust from the bench. He lifts one tool with care. It is a ring of iron with tiny teeth and a center pin. He calls it a trepan. He says the pin marks the spot and keeps the saw from slipping. He turns a small brace in his hand, shows how it bites, slow and steady. He speaks in a voice you could nap to. The words are simple and the meaning is heavy. Sometimes the skull breaks in a fall. Sometimes bone presses in, and pain roars, and thinking goes crooked. The fix in this room is to open a neat circle and lift the press. Not a haircut you asked for, but it has its fans tonight. He sets the tool down and shows a wooden box of herbs. Betony leaves, lavender, a pinch of rosemary. He makes a cool cloth with vinegar and rose water and folds it for a brow. He says the fabric steadies hands, steadies the heart too. The belief is clear and strong at this time. Herbs can guide the body back to balance. The doctrine of signatures lives here as well. Walnuts look like tiny brains, so walnuts must be good for the head. You look at the walnut in his palm and imagine a doctor writing a recipe that is also a salad. Medicine you can snack on. We should all be so lucky. He picks up the trepan again and lets you feel the weight. Not heavy, just honest. He explains the steps softly. The head is shaved. The skin is cleaned with wine or vinegar, and a small cut is made in the skin. Then the trepan meets bone. The point holds, the circle turns. The teeth bite, dust the color of chalk. The ring travels down like a moon lowering itself. He stops before the last thin layer. He lifts the circle of bone with a small lever, a move as delicate as lifting a coin from a table with 2 fingers. The goal is relief. Pressure drops. Evil vapors, as some call them, have a way out, a DIY skylight for a crowded attic. A real, solid fact sits under the soft talk. Surgeons in the Renaissance performed this work for skull fractures and pressure injuries resulting from blows. A French surgeon named Ambrose Père wrote careful notes on it. He demonstrated how to remove a broken bone and prevent further damage. He improved tools. He also told surgeons to stop bleeding by tying off vessels, which saved lives. His books travel in this room like quiet mentors. You can feel that in the way the man checks every edge twice and then twice again. He sets down the metal and lets the herbs retake the stage. He opens a small jar lined with linen. Inside is something gray-green and dry. He calls it skull moss. It is the lichen that grows on old skulls in churchyards. Powdered and kept clean, it is pressed on cuts to help slow bleeding. It also carries a hope that the calm of the grave can tell a wild wound to hush. He dabs a pinch on the back of his own hand to show how it clings. Grim? Yes, but common then. Apothecaries list it. People trust it. Historians still argue whether the moss has true power beyond being a good, dry pad or whether the story around it did most of the work. A patient lies on a straw mattress nearby. He fell from a scaffold and has a dent along the side of his head. His breath is shallow, but steady. The surgeon warms his hands and speaks to him the whole time, even when the man's eyes drift. He soaks a square of cloth in wine and presses it close. He lifts another jar, this one with a cloth plug. He calls it a sleeping sponge. It smells thick and sweet and a little scary. It has been dipped in juices of opium, henbane, and a little mandrake, then dried. When held to a nose, it can pull a person towards sleep. It does not always listen to orders. The surgeon uses it lightly, not as a switch, more like a dimmer. Historians still argue whether these sponges were daily tools or rare in practice, because the line between nap and never wake is thin in this era. He hums while he works. The hum is for himself as much as for the room. You notice how he pauses to check the pulse at the wrist. He checks the pupils with a candle. He is reading a body the way the doctor reads your medulla, but with his hands more than his eyes. He wets a little lint in rose vinegar and wipes the skin clean. He touches the iron to the skull and breathes out. Turn. Lift. Wait. Listen. He does not rush. The lamp ticks. The room becomes one long breath. When the circle is free, he lifts it, and the patient's shoulders soften. Pressure has a way of shouting. It also has a way of quieting in a single sigh. He smooths the edge of bone with a rasp that looks like a nail file for giants. He sets the little circle aside in a bowl, then considers, then places it back like a cork because he believes the body should keep its parts when it can. Some surgeons leave it out when the swelling is too significant. Choices live here. The man stitches the skin with careful bites and ties each knot small. He dusts skull moss on the line, then a little pad, then a clean band. He paints the area with a wash of wine. The smell fills the room. You start to relax just from the scent, or it is the way everyone else relaxes. He makes a tea for later with betony and a bit of willow bark. He says willow cools the heat in the head. It grows by water and remembers how to soothe. He adds lavender because sleep is also a balm. He writes a note. Quiet, shade, thin broth, no heavy drink, no bright talk. He draws a tiny walnut on the top, his joke for the day. You smile. He smiles back without looking up. He speaks softly about why people have holes in their skulls from long before his time. Old bones found with healed circles show survival. That is another fact. People sometimes lived. It was not all doom. The body can surprise you. It knows how to grow back a story if you give it time and clean hands. Historians still argue whether such openings were also made for headaches alone, or for spirits thought to sit behind the eyes and whisper confusion. The truth is a tangle. Pain makes people brave. So does belief. He clears the bench. He oils the trepan. He folds the sleeping sponge away and sets it near the window to dry. He writes the date in a book and a simple line about a fall, a circle, and a breath that loosened. He looks to you and tips his head toward the door. The work here is never done, but you do not need to watch him oil the iron for an hour. Besides, other rooms are calling. The lane waits, damp and silver. The apothecary's cat patrols the stoop like a guard with soft shoes. You slip outside. The night air is cool on your face. You touch your own head, a reflex you didn't plan. You are grateful for bone, for calm hands, for herbs that smell like gardens, and for tools that look scary and act kind. You walk on. You tuck the walnut fact into your pocket like a small charm, and you make a tiny promise to your skull. No scaffolds tonight. You step into the wide street. The rain slips to mist. A slow bell tolls from somewhere ahead. Not a church note. This one is smaller, closer. Plague bell. The sound curls through the fog like a thin wire. Lanterns swing on long poles. A watchman chalks a sign on a door and steps back with care. In some cities, houses with sickness are marked so others know to pass by wide. People whisper. They walk in the middle of the road. No one wants a brush of sleeves tonight. You hold the pomander that the apothecary tucked into your hand earlier. Lemon peel and mint. You press it close. Spice lifts the air right in front of your face. It helps. Miasma is the fear in this age. Bad air, thick air, rotten air. So people fight smell with smell. Posies sit in cuffs and hats. Bundles of rosemary, rue, and wormwood hang from belts. The idea is simple. If the stink is the threat, fill your world with a better stink. You smile at the logic because it is neat. You also smile because you now smell like a walking soup. Honestly, not the worst. A figure steps from a doorway. Long coat, waxed hat, gloves, a cane, and that mask. The beak looks like a goose that chose medical school. Long, curved, and serious. He has stuffed it with herbs and a bit of sponge soaked in vinegar. The idea is to filter air, to turn the street into a garden, at least inside the mask. This outfit is absolutely for later in the 1600s. Doctors in some places wore it for plague visits. The cane is to keep a space, also to lift a cloth, also to point. Touch is a risk, so the cane does the touching. The doctor nods to you, and his eyes, behind glass, do a slow blink. You nod back. You try not to laugh. The mask is odd. It is also brave. He lets you see inside the beak. You catch a mix of sharp and sweet. Rue, lavender, cloves, camphor, a crumble of ambergris if the purse is fat. He taps the beak with a finger. Better to smell this than the street, he says. You agree. You also agree that the beak would win any bird costume contest without trying. He slides the mask back into place with care. The leather coat squeaks. He tips the cane to your pomander. Good choice, he says. Small garden, big help. You sip a little vinegar from a small glass. Sharp, clean. The mix is called oxymel when it has honey. Vinegars get names like rose vinegar, sage vinegar, even for thieves' vinegar. The story says a band of thieves rubbed themselves with it to rob the sick and stayed well. It is a bold claim. Vinegar can cut the smell, can clean a surface. It will not make you a superhero, but it makes people feel braver. Tonight, that is worth a lot. You tip the glass and blink your eyes clear. Your throat wakes up like it just did a sit-up. Cart rolls by. The driver rings a small bell. People step aside. The driver is wrapped to the eyes. He does not look down. He rings and rolls on. You turn your face to the river and breathe through the pomander again. Far off, a light marks a house outside the walls. Pest house, a place set to keep sickness away from the city. In port towns, ships anchor out for a long wait. 40 days is the number you hear. Quaranta, that is where the word quarantine comes from, and that is a plain fact of this time. It feels like a long breath held by the whole harbor. Hope looks out over the water and counts the days. A door opens with your elbow. Warm light spills. You step in. An apothecary is at work with a crowd, not unlike the first shop, but louder. A big copper pan sits on a stand. Scales with nested weights rest on the counter. Shiny hooks hold bundles of dried roots. There is a small platform similar to a stage. People watch the center of the room with open, hungry faces. Tonight is a public meeting. The sign says treacle. The fancy word is theriac. This is the famous one. The universal antidote. The cure for almost all. It is a mix that has crossed centuries. City rulers even check and stamp it sometimes to keep it honest. Venice is proud of its version. The making becomes a purposeful show so every person can see what goes on. The apothecary measures powders into a bowl. Myrrh, cinnamon, gentian, angelica. He adds little shavings of opium. He drops in bits of viper flesh that have been dried to a safe crisp, if you can call any snake safe. The smell is thick and warm, spice, sweet, and a bitter vine that wraps around your tongue. He stirs. He sings a little tune to keep the rhythm steady. He adds wine and honey until the paste turns glossy. It will sit to cure. It will be pressed into little cakes. Some people say it is better when aged like fine cheese. You imagine it on a snack tray and have to stop that thought fast. You step close to the scale. He cuts a small pebble from a fresh roll. It gleams. He weighs it with tiny weights like coins for a toy king. He slides the pebble onto a square of paper and folds the corners in. You feel the weight in your palm. It is not heavy. It is not light. It has the gravity of a promise. This is the heart of theriac's pull. It says, I can handle poison. I can stop bad breath from the air. I can hold back fear. It is big talk. It also has things in it that can calm pain, like opium. So sometimes people do feel better. The mind and the body both crave order. A ball of neat paste can give you that for a night. He offers you a taste no bigger than a grain of rice. You touch it to your tongue. Warmth spreads. Sweet first, then bitter, then a slow hush. You do not need more than that. He smiles. He tells you some folks take a pee each day, against all hours. Some take more when a bell rings outside. He says some princes keep jars the size of small drums in vaults like treasure. He is not joking. He wraps your pebble and draws a tiny serpent on the paper. He ties it with a red thread. You look back at the street. A pair of children in thick cloaks skip a circle game and sing. It is soft. It is sweet. They hold posies in their hands. Historians still argue whether that old circle song is really about the plague or just a rhyme with a good clap. The truth under it is simple. People like to make patterns when the world feels messy. A rhyme is a small fence. A circle is a small home. Your fingers find the places on your back where the cups sat earlier. Warm, round, calm. Your elbow remembers the polite little leech kisses. You breathe through your pomander and feel the vinegar clear the mucus inside your nose. You touch the folded paper with theriac in your pocket. Your night kit grows. It is half medicine, half ritual. It is also a way to make time move. One sniff, one sip, one pebble, one street. The hours pass like beads. The beaked doctor lifts his cane to you as he moves on. You lift your pomander in reply like a tiny trophy. He nods. You nod. You watch his silhouette slide along the fog. You do not chase the cart. You do not trace the chalk. You walk, gentle and slow, toward a lane where lamps glow steadily. The apothecary's cat appears at the corner as if it has been waiting. It bumps your ankle and then strolls ahead like a guide. You follow the small tail through the mist, with herbs in your pocket, scent in your hands, and one neat pebble of hope tucked safe as a secret. The cat leads you down a narrow stair behind the busy counter. The steps creak like old knuckles. A door opens on a basement lit by beeswax candles. Shelves crowd the walls. Jars line up like a tiny army. Some are clear. Some are brown. Many wear tidy labels in a looping hand. The air smells warm and odd. Spice, resin, and a sweet, waxy note that makes you think of candles left in the sun. The chemist looks up and smiles. His sleeves are neat. His hair is not. He moves like someone who loves lists. He points to a large jar. The label reads Mumia. Inside, the powder is the color of tea with too much milk. He opens the lid. A mix of tar and cinnamon rises. He taps the glass. Egypt, he says with a slight nod. Very fine. He pours a little into a paper cone. Pours like sand from a child's bucket. He tells you what people here believe. Mumia stops bleeding. It helps bruises. Steadies pain. The story says it is full of bitumen. That dark, sticky stuff that seals and preserves. Ancient bodies took it in. Now you take it out. That is the loop. He says this with a calm face, as if he is talking about pepper. At this time, it is normal. Apothecaries list it in their books. That is a simple fact. You feel your eyebrows try to rise anyway. He folds the paper and tucks it under a weight. He adds, softer, that not all mumia is real. Some is just resin and pitch. Some is plain earth with perfume. Traders have tricks. Historians still argue whether most jars in Europe held mummies or clever fakes, since demand ran higher than tombs could bear. People then knew some of that. Many looked away. The idea was the medicine. The label held the spell. He brings down another jar. Cranium humanum, the label reads. He uses a clean spoon to lift a pinch. It is a pale dust, fine as chalk. The smell is faint, like an old, clean book. He says a little of this goes into wine or chocolate. For seizures, for nosebleeds, for bleeding that will not stop. People like the skull of the young. They like skulls from a death with thunder in it. They say that shock still holds a spark. It is not your favorite idea, but it is theirs. Historians still argue whether the violent death rule was a firm medical belief or a folk add-on that just would not let go. He tells you a story while he wipes the spoon clean. A king once sipped a tincture made from skull shavings in alcohol. He called it his special drops. He thought it kept his head clear. The recipe traveled like a rumor in a velvet coat. Apothecaries copied it. Patients asked for it by nickname. The bottle sat on desks beside ink and quills. People did not whisper about this then. It was in the open. It was medicine in an era that favored bold cures. You think of your herbal tea upstairs and wonder what is in your cup. Answer, only flowers. You breathe out. He sets the skull jar back and reaches for a thick brown pot. The seal takes work. When it opens, the smell is soft and fatty, like tallow mixed with thyme. The label says Pingato hominis, human fat. He scoops a little with a small wooden spatula. He spreads it on fresh linen. It melts at once. He explains it is for bruises, for cramps, for joint pain that gnaws at night. Mixed with rosemary or St. John's wort, it makes a balm for aching bones. Plenty of households keep some by the bed. Poor souls get it from the bodies of executed criminals. Richer folks from hospitals after quiet bargain. He says this as if he is selling soap. He seals the pot and wipes the rim. This is a real practice, scheduled for the designated time. Human fat salves live in recipe books. The pot has a nickname on the street, thieves' grease. People say thieves rub it on to slip ropes or lock grips. They say it helps them leap fences by moonlight. They say it brings luck when you need to be seen by no one. The chemist snorts. Maybe it just keeps the cold off, he says. Quirky tale or not, the jars sell. Historians still argue whether that nickname comes from real thieves or from neighbors who needed a spooky name for a plain old ointment. He taps another note. Some folks make candles with fat from the gallows. They call them special. A light that no one sees but the one who holds it, say the stories. He kindly rolls his eyes. Stories help the night feel shorter, he says, but they don't always help a bruise. He fits the lid tight and sets the pot aside. You look back at the mummy jar. The label has a neat little border. It is charming if you forget what it holds. Pain makes people brave, you think. It also makes them curious. You are both tonight. The chemist shows you a drawer of seals. One says Mumia Vera, true mummy. He stamps a packet in red wax and smiles like a baker proud of a loaf. The market has rules, even for this. City officers sometimes test theriac in public upstairs. Here, too, officials can peek into jars. This is a world that loves show and seal. Feels safe that way. Or safer. He scoops you a tiny packet of mumia. He adds a smaller one of skull powder. Only if a nosebleed won't stop, he says. He touches the pot of fat and shakes his head no. You don't need that tonight. You agree. Your back is warm from the cups. Your elbow is fine. Your brain is busy, though. It is trying to square care with creep. You hold both in your hands. Paper, powder, stamp. Ghost story, label, salve. You smile at the absurdity and the honesty of it. Medicine can be human in more ways than one. Joke 1. You have never wanted to read an ingredient list so slowly. He wraps your packets in brown paper and ties them with string. He draws a tiny pyramid on the corner. For Egypt, he says, and it is almost sweet. He writes a recipe as well. A pinch of mumia in wine for a bruise after a fall. Not every day. Not for long. And really, try a cold cloth first. He is a careful man. He also tells you a quiet belief. Pain trapped under skin likes warmth and time. So does fear. He pours you mint water to rinse your mouth and wash out the spice smell. You sip and nod. He opens a book to a page with tidy lines. Lists of simples and compounds. He points to mumia, cranium, and pingato in the left column. He taps the right. Uses, doses, notes. He shrugs at the blank space under proof. Historians still argue whether any clear benefit came from these corpse cures, or if the comfort came only from ritual, spice, and time. He does not pretend to judge. He stocks what the age believes, and he tries not to lie. You thank him. You slide the packets into your bag. You try not to think about how you now share a purse with a pharaoh. Joke 2. You are glad the pharaoh is not charging rent. The chemist hands the cat a saucer of milk. It ignores it and headbutts your knee instead. You scratch its chin because you are easy. You climb the stairs back to the lane. The air feels new after the thick basement scent. You breathe deep. You catch rosemary in the wind and a hint of river. The beak doctor has turned the corner. The chalk sign on the door across the street looks stark in the moonlight. You press the pomander to your nose and taste lemon and clove. You touch the string on your new packet. Joke 3. If TSA existed, you would have a lot to explain. The night goes on. Your steps find a soft rhythm. You think of the skull moss from earlier and how calm it felt somehow, even as it made you shiver. People do what they can with what they have. They make sense where they can. Sometimes that means a walnut tea. Sometimes it means a stamped packet with a story inside. You walk, a little quieter now, and the cat walks ahead like it knows the next door that will open. The cat slips through a low door where the air glows orange. Heat kisses your face. A furnace hums like a big sleepy animal. Glass curves everywhere. Retorts lean like swans. Alembics nest like bubbles. The room smells of wine spirit, sulfur, and warm clay. A man in a smoke-stained apron looks up and grins. He is a doctor, but he looks like a smith who reads. He taps a book with scorched edges. Too many herbs, he says with a laugh. Too much old Latin. He means the old way, those fat herbals you saw upstairs. Tonight, he likes the new way. Chemicals, fire. He tilts his head at a small woodcut on the wall. A sharp-nosed face with wild hair. Paracelsus, he whispers like a secret. The name rolls around the room. He tells you Paracelsus taught in Basel and spoke in German, not just Latin. He tossed old rules into the fire and told students to watch the body, not only the book. That is a plain fact, carried in many mouths. He also loved a big idea. The dose makes the poison. Too little does nothing. Too much is harmful. The middle is the cure. Sounds so modern that you almost clap. He lifts a stoppered bottle. Spirit of wine, clear as glass. He adds drops to a brown jar. Opium sleeps inside, sliced thin as petals. He swirls. He waits. The jar darkens like evening. Laudanum, he says softly. A comfort drop. He puts a single drop on sugar and touches it to your tongue. Warmth pools behind your eyes, slow and kind. Your shoulders sink a little. No more than that. He is careful. He says a grain too many can turn night too deep. The voice he uses is a lullaby with a seat belt. He shows you a shelf of labeled jars. Oil of vitriol, aquafortis, aqua regia, names that sound like a parade. He dips a copper coin into aquafortis. Fizzes. It blushes green. You yelp and then laugh at yourself. Joke 1. You make a note never to put your lunch in that jar. He tells you these are tools, not toys. They etch. They clean. They also teach. He taps a small crucible and nods toward the furnace. Come see the king of liquids. He pours a red powder into a retort. Cinnabar. The color glows like new paint. He seals joints with clay. He sets the glass in the mouth of the heat. The furnace breathes. The red darkens. A silver sheen creeps along the neck. Then, as if on cue, tiny beads gather and begin to run. Quicksilver. Mercury. They chase each other like little moons in a game. The cat watches with flat judgment, tail twitching. Joke 2. The beads win the cuteness award, but the cat disagrees. He tips the retort and gathers the liquid metal in a ceramic cup. It moves like a mirror come to life. He dips a feather in it and lifts it out. The feather wears drops like armor. He does not let you touch. He is not reckless. He explains the cure everyone talks about in this age. Mercury rubs for the pox, ointments, fumes, weeks of it, sweat and spit. Teeth can loosen, gums can ache, but sometimes the sores fade, the fever drops. People call it the hard path that saves. The age has many names for the sickness, and none of them are gentle. He speaks without drama. He has seen both ends of the story. He points to a bound set of woodcuts. They show miners with lungs full of dust. He tells you Paracelsus wrote about miners' sickness and metal poisoning. That is true. He saw what mines do to bodies. He tried to name it and measure it. He said that the correct dose can heal, and the wrong dose can kill, even with metals and herbs. Historians still argue whether he truly burned the famous Book of Avicenna in Basel or bragged later, but they do not dispute the chant he left behind. Dose matters. You nod. That idea feels steady, like a handrail. He sets the mercury aside and lifts a pale, star-shaped lump from a drawer. Antimony. The star is a sign of a clean batch, he says. He drops a chip into a goblet and pours wine over it. The wine sits for a while with a faint shimmer along the rim. He tells you that steeped wine can make a stubborn stomach give up its secrets. Emetic, he says. A purge to reset. Some schools ban it. Some cheer it. In some cities, the argument turns into a paper war with fines and edicts. The ban flips, then flips back. You can feel the push and pull from here. He offers you a sip no bigger than a raindrop. You taste metal and grape. Your belly notes it but decides to behave. He winks. Dose, my friend. He shows you a heavy pewter cup lined with antimony. Families pass these cups around the table in some places, he says. They pour wine in, wait, drink, then, excuse me, recover what leaves later and keep the cup for next time. A thrift trick with a strong stomach. You stare. Joke 3. You are glad the dishwasher is not your job. He turns to a small vial that glows faintly yellow. He calls it potable gold. Drinkable gold. Gold leaf is washed with spirits and salt until it hangs in tiny flakes. People sip it for weak hearts and cold moods. They say it carries sunlight through the blood. Does it help? Sometimes hope makes a warm drink warmer. He taps the glass and smiles. Sun in a cup, he says. On cloudy days, he talks about the tria prima as he works. Salt, sulfur, mercury. Not the metals, but the ideas. Body, soul, spirit. The solid, the burning, the moving. He says all things hold a mix of these three. When the mix goes wrong, you fall ill. When you set it right, you stand. It is tidy. It also gives him a reason to stir, distill, and try again. He likes that part. He adds a drop of rosemary oil to a clear spirit and wafts it under your nose. It sparkles. Smells like a clean field. Even the cat sighs. You glance at your pomander and remember the beaked mask. You think of theriac and its snake dust. You think of skull moss and walnuts. You see how this new bench tries to outdo the old ones. Not a garden now, but a furnace. Not a stew of herbs, but a row of spirits and salts and metals turned into medicine. The doctor taps a jar of sweet vitriol, a syrup he uses to calm bleeding from the nose when nothing else will. He says the old books help, but sometimes they stop. The new tools take the next step. He rolls his sleeves and rubs a dab of mercurial ointment between gloved fingers. He says it warms. He would rub it on the skin, not swallow it. He nods at your frown. He knows. He has read the stories too. He tells you some swear by guaiac would instead, brewed into tea, to sweat the sickness out. Others sit in judgment over both. He shrugs. He watches bodies, not debates. He cares who sleeps through the night. He pours water over the floor bricks to keep the dust down. He writes a line for you on a scrap. 1 drop of laudanum at dusk if pain crowds. Never 2. A sip of rosemary spirit when the head pounds. Fresh air. Calm walks. He draws a small star in the corner. Not a seal. Just a wish. He points to a kettle he calls the Athenor. It maintains a steady heat all night with minimal fuel consumption. He says he dreams of a cure that works like that. Gentle, constant, and kind. You think that is a good dream. You think the night has its own heat, and you are standing in the warmest room of it. You look again at the mercury beads, now still. They look like captured moons. You look at the antimony star. You look at the gold flakes that cling to the glass like tiny flags. People drink metals here. They rub metals on the skin. They think in metals, too. It is strange. It is brave. It is also a little funny that the cat, of all creatures, chooses a plain wooden. You thank the doctor. He nods and douses the retort with care. He wipes the neck with a cloth that smells a bit like oranges. He opens the door for you and the cat, and cool air rolls in. Your pockets now hold herbs, a pebble of theriac, a stamped packet from under the earth, and a star on a scrap that says, in its own way, stay small with the drops. You follow the heat and step into a room that glows like a bread oven. Steam curls from a copper kettle. The ceiling sweats. Benches shine with oil and use. A wooden box sits in the middle like a crate for very important people. The lid has a round hole cut for a head. A jug of water waits on a stool, and next to it, a bowl of chips from a dark, heavy wood. The keeper greets you with a nod. He is calm, broad, and kind. He calls the chips holy wood, guaiacum. He says the tree lives across the ocean, where the water is blue like fresh paint. Sailors bring the logs home. Merchants break them into coins and medicine. He drops a handful into the kettle. The water turns the color of weak tea. A sweet resin smell lifts. It reminds you of fresh sap and pepper. He pours a cup and holds it out. Steam kisses your face. You sip. It is woody and bitter, but not rude. Your lips tingle. He waves to the box. You climb in and sit on a low stool. He closes the lid around your neck, gentle as a scarf. Your head stays out in the cool. Your body sits in a little sunless sauna. Joke 1. You are now a toaster pastry with opinions. He wraps a wool cloak around your shoulders to seal the gap. He checks your pulse at the wrist, steady and slow. He nods. He pours more guaiacum tea and tells you to sip, not gulp. He says this is the plan for the pox that passes from bed to bed. People call it the French disease here. Others call it by their neighbor's name. Everyone blames someone else. The sores that come with it scare cities and break hearts. 2 big cures stand in the ring tonight. Sweat with holy wood or rub with mercury. You saw the mercury earlier, dreamy and dangerous. Here, the stove takes the stage. A fact you can hold on to. In the early 1500s, guaiacum became a famous remedy in Europe. A knight named Ulrich von Hutten even wrote a book praising it. He said it saved him. Printers loved that story. So did traders. The kettle whistles. The keeper dips a ladle and pours a line of hot water into a shallow pan under your feet. Heat blooms. Sweat wakes up on your arms like slight rain. He slides a wooden cup into your hand. Sip, he says again. Sweat is the broom. He means the sweat will wash away the bad. That is the hope. You breathe, slow and easy. You hear the cat outside the door do a single, unimpressed meow. The cat is not here for cardio. He lays out the rules in a soft voice. 30 days of this, sometimes 40. Sweat every day. No cold air. No fruit. No wine. Bread, broth, and water. No bath in cold water, only warm wipe-downs. Clean linen. Early bed. No jumps of joy. He says that with a wink. The point is to keep the body warm and quiet so the wood can work. You nod. Sounds like a long, simple winter. He lifts a small paddle and fans the steam toward your chest. Your skin flushes. Your back remembers the warm circles from the cups. You can almost feel the leech kisses agree. The keeper dabs your brow with a cloth that smells of roses. He tells you that some stoves put a slit in the lid for a reed, so you can drink without lifting your head. He prefers cups and pauses. He says pausing is part of the cure. That is your quirky tip of the hour. Also quirky. Guaiacum wood is so complicated that shipbuilders love it for pulleys, and later folks will use it for bowling balls. Medicine and games can share a tree. He keeps your mind busy with stories. He says rich houses build private sweat rooms and hang tapestries to keep heat in. Inns rent stovetime by the hour. Town baths keep a book. He shows you a slate by the door with 2 columns, sweat and no sweat. You make a face at the honesty. Historians still argue whether the pox sailed in with crews from the new lands or was already here, hiding in different clothes. The talk rises and falls like the steam. You file the thought away with your other quiet questions. He rechecks your pulse. He tells you of merchants who make fortunes selling holy wood. A family called the Fugers runs the trade in some years and keeps the price high. City fathers buy blocks for hospitals. Doctors argue in papers. Is this better than quicksilver? Is it kinder? Patients line up and try. That is the fact of it. The line never ends, so neither does the boiler. You sweat. Pours from you in streams. Cools your ribs and warms your hands. The keeper hands you another cup of tea. He sets a basin near your feet to catch what falls. He will measure the water loss later and nod like a general checking the day's march. He says some old teachers tell him to shave his head to release heat. He does not shave tonight. He pats your hair like a father and laughs. Joke 2, your haircut survives to fight another day. He opens the lid a finger's width to let a little new air in. He does it by feel. He does not want a chill to strike. He watches your face for the sign that says, enough. Your eyes feel soft. Your cheeks glow. You think of the beaked mask and the pomander. You think of theriac, a pebble in your pocket that tastes like a spice shop on purpose. You think of skull moss, green and still. This stove is another bench in this long night. It asks you to sweat, to drink, to be patient. He tells you how the taste of the tea changes over a month. Starts bitterly. It ends almost friendly. He says that might be the tongue getting used to it, or it is hope moving the needle. He does not pretend to know. He only pours and watches. He reminds you again, no extra drops of wine in the cup. Some attendants sneak it, saying it helps sweat talk. He shakes his head. Sweat already speaks loudly, he says. You ask how people feel after. He says many feel lighter, looser, sleepy in a good way. Some swear their sores ease. Some see no change and turn to mercury baths. He shrugs with a gentle face. Bodies are different. Seasons are different. He cares for all of them with the same towels and the same tea. He wipes your neck and checks your pulse one last time. He lifts the lid and helps you stand. Your skin steams in the cool air. He wraps you in linen and rubs your arms briskly. You feel wrung out and new at the same time. He gives you a small cake of guaiac resin to carry with you. It smells like clean wood and pepper. He tells you to keep your scarf tight on the walk home and to eat warm broth with a pinch of cinnamon. He writes a line on your paper bundle. Sweat mild, sip slow, sleep long. He draws a tiny tree beside it. You like that. You sit on a bench and sip water until your head stops floating. He opens the door, and the night folds in. The cat slides around your legs like a ribbon. Joke 3. You promise that you will not make a sauna at home with a soup pot. The cat does not trust you and is right. You step back into the lane. The air feels kind after the stove. Your cheeks hold heat like clay bricks. Your bag is heavier by one more story. You stroll, soft-footed and loose. A sign ahead shows a tooth, big as a pear, carved in wood. A candle burns in the window beside it. You roll your tongue along your teeth without thinking. The night smiles a little. You smile back. The tooth sign creaks as you push the door. Warm lamplight slides over gleaming tools and a bowl of small cloves. Mint hangs in the air like a polite hello. The chair is tall, with a headrest that looks like it has heard secrets. A tooth drawer wipes his hands, smiles, and points to the cushion. You sit. Your jaw already feels chatty. Your molar writes a tiny complaint note and slides it under your tongue. You ignore it. He shows you a little brass funnel. He sets a clay dish on a stand. Charcoal glows like tiny suns. He drops seeds of henbane onto the coals. Smoke rises, thin and sweet, then thick and strange. He guides the funnel to your open mouth. Breathe through your nose, he murmurs. Let the smoke creep to the ache. You do. The taste is bitter. Your gums prickle. The smoke curls along your teeth with a tickle and a threat, like a cat paw under a door. He explains the idea in this room. Toothworms cause pain. They gnaw in the dark and need smoke to drive them out. That belief is common here. Drawings show little worms looping from a tooth like bad ribbon. He taps your jaw with a finger. He listens to the echo. He gives you a drop of clove oil on cotton. It numbs. That part is real. Clove can quiet a nerve. Your shoulders sink a bit. You breathe slower. He smiles. Good, he says. Now, let's scare the worm. More henbane seeds fall to the glow. The smoke thickens. He moves the funnel in tiny circles. Your eyes water. He lifts the funnel and peers inside your mouth with a little mirror. He nods with drama. He takes a hook and dabs at the sore spot. He lowers the hook to a cloth and shows you a tiny curl. Dark, damp, not moving. There, he says, the beast. It looks like a bit of ash or a shred of softened pulp. If you saw it on a fishing hook, you would ask for a refund. He drops it into a dish like a trophy and pats your cheek. He sets out the other options with an open hand. A hot iron to sear the hole and stop the ache. A drill to open and clean. An extraction with a pelican. A beaked lever that hugs the tooth and lifts it out. He holds up the pelican. It shines. Your stomach votes no with both hands. He nods and does not press. He rubs clove oil along the gum again and packs a pinch of myrrh with wool. He says keep the side warm and clean. He looks at your pomander and approves. Your breath smells like a spice shop with a side hustle in bravery. He tells a small, odd tip he heard from a grandmother. Tie a live frog to the jaw and let it breathe the ache out. He grins. I prefer clove, he says. You agree. Historians still argue whether the toothworms people thought they saw were nerves, food fibers, soot from seeds, or a trick the smoke played on eyes that wanted a villain. The truth hides under the gum line. The comfort comes from the ritual, the clove, the voice that says you will sleep. He leads you to a cabinet of curiosities along the wall. Velvet lines the shelves. Polished stone sits on a stand, smooth, brown, and dappled. He lifts it with both hands like a small planet. Bezoar. He says it forms in the guts of goats and other beasts who chew and chew. Layers build. A stone grows. People here love them as antidotes. They shave a little into wine to fight poison. They set them in gold and wear them as rings. One royalty keeps a big one on a chain beside the bed. He tips the stone in your palm. It is heavy, a pocket moon with a job. He tells you a story that is not cozy. A cook once agreed to test a bezoar after swallowing poison. He took the shaving. He waited. He died anyway. A famous surgeon told that tale so others would not trust a stone more than a patient. That surgeon's name makes rooms go still, pair. He wrote it plain, and that is a fact. The tooth drawer nods at the stone. Help some, he says. Hurt none. But do not stake your last hour on a pebble. Wise words for a long night. He shows you a tiny spoon with holes. He says some test a bezoar by steeping it in hot milk. If the milk sours, they frown. If it stays sweet, they smile. He shrugs. Milk has moods. He puts the spoon away. He does not sell you the stone. He says it is for princes and show. He does sell little amulets with a speck pressed in wax for travelers. Quirky, yes, but so is a pebble of theriac in your pocket, and you still like that. The mind loves a talisman, keeps fear on a short leash. On the next shelf, a long, pale spiral rests like a tame lightning bolt. It is cool and smooth, with lines that twist upward. Unicorn horn, the tag says, in a beautiful hand. You look, then look again. Your fingers know better. This is a narwhal tusk, carried from cold seas by traders who speak in numbers and smiles. Courts pay fortunes for pieces. Some make cups and stirrers. They say the horn sweats near poison or makes the drink safe. A king once held one like a scepter and felt taller. That is a plain, easy fact of the time. He lifts a small stick cut from the twist and dips it in wine. You lean in. You expect sparks. The wine stays wine. It does not fizz. It does not glow. He shrugs and grins. Sometimes it works when the host is watching, he says. Joke 1. The horn has stage fright. He tells you that bishops bless such sticks. Princes present them. The story is heavy even if the science is light. Historians still argue whether buyers truly believed in unicorns or liked the power a miracle object gave them in a room full of eyes. He sets the tusk back with care and polishes a thin cup made from the same bright stuff. He says some diners sip only from these. They feel safe that way. You swirl the empty cup and pretend to sniff for notes of vintage Arctic. Joke 2. It pairs well with nothing you can afford. He laughs. He is not unkind. He is honest about the comfort these items sell. He is also honest about clove oil and pliers. He tucks cotton along your sore tooth again. He tells you to chew on the other side. No nuts tonight. Sorry, walnut fans. You remember the walnut on the surgeon's bench and smile at the overlap. Ideas echo from room to room. Smoke chases worms. Stones chase poison. Horns chase fear. None of them chase your rent. He writes a tiny plan. Rinse with warm salt water. Rest the jaw. A too hot needle is a last choice. If the pain roars at dawn, come back, and the pelican will sing. You believe him. You hope he does not have to. He draws a tiny tooth with a smile on the corner. The face has dimples. Your molar forgives you. You touch the dish where the worm sits like a burnt comma. You think about skull moss. You think about guaiacum and how it asked you to sweat out a storm. You think about the beaked mask and the cane, and how the cane made space when fear pressed in. Tonight has been a tour of hope dressed in herbs, metals, wood, and bone. It is strange and tender, and sometimes it is funny without trying. Joke 3. Your travel kit now includes a pocket spice shop, a cat, and a unicorn you cannot ride. The tooth drawer hands you a clove to chew if the ache wakes. He pats the cat as you stand. The cat tolerates it with a noble sigh. You step into the lane. The night is calm. A sign ahead shows a man with lines drawn all over him, little stars near the joints. A chart hangs in the window, yellow and crisp. The moon tips over the roofs like a coin. You feel the clove warm your gums. You follow the cat and the starlit sign, ready to see who decides when a knife should sing. You step inside the shop with the starry sign. Warm beeswax drips. Ink smells like rain on stone. A chart fills the wall. A naked man stands there, calm as a statue, with zodiac signs scattered over his skin like tiny badges. A candle licks the edge of the page. The paper crinkles. The drawing watches you watch it. The surgeon-physician greets you with a nod. He has a steady hand and a soft voice. He wears a neat cap and a coat brushed smooth. A sandglass rests by his elbow. A slim almanac lies open on the table, full of tables, little moons, and tidy notes. You see a paper will pinned in the front. It spins. He points at the chart. Zodiac man, he says. Old friend. He taps the head. Aries here. He taps the neck. Taurus. Arms, hands. Gemini. Chest, breast. Cancer. Heart. Leo. Belly. Virgo. Lower back and kidney. Libra. Lower parts, the ones that make everyone blush. Scorpio. Thighs. Sagittarius. Knees. Capricorn. Shins. Aquarius. Feet. Pisces. You nod. The map is simple. The map is bold. Your own body takes inventory without asking. He folds the almanac so the moon chart faces up. The moon pulls tides, he murmurs. And blood is a tide. That is a plain fact here. People watch the sky for their health the way they watch the sky for weather. They keep bleeding calendars in kitchens. They pin little men with stars on pantry doors. Town barbers paint the sign on their walls so everyone can see the best days to cut and the days to wait. He glances at the sandglass, then at the window. The night is thin and clean. He holds your wrist and feels the hum of your pulse. He has a metula on a shelf, catches light like the one you saw before. He uses all his tools. He will not let the sky do everything. He asks where you ache. You tell him you carry heat in your head. He nods and peeks at the chart again. Moon in Aries tonight, he says, tapping the ram on the brow. He lifts his hand from your wrist, so we do not bleed the head. Not when the moon sits on it. He turns the paper wheel. Clicks. The paper has a little window that shows hours and signs. He spins it slow like a prayer wheel, like a calm game. Joke 1. It is a fidget spinner of fate. He stops and points. Good for a foot bath, he says. Good for a cooling draft. No lancet at the temple. No cupping on the crown. He smiles and adds, unless you wish to argue with a ram, you pass on that. He brings out a small brass instrument. It looks like a flat compass with a handle. He calls it an astrolabe, then laughs, and then says, a simple one. He uses it primarily for teaching, he admits. The almanac is quicker. He taps the line for planetary hours. Saturn has the heavy ones. Jupiter, the kind ones. Moon hours suit fluids. He picks an hour for you, just as he would pick music. A Jupiter hour tomorrow, he says. We take a little from the arm, not the head. We cool the whole. We spare the crown. He shows you a second chart. It is a bloodletting man. Veins spread like little rivers. Each has a note beside it. For fever, for the spleen, for the eyes. He traces a line with his finger. This one helps storms behind the eyes, but not tonight. The rules are stacked. Do not bleed when the moon is full. Do not bleed the part ruled by the sign the moon stands in. Do not bleed in a storm. Do not bleed on an empty stomach. He keeps the rules simple and slow. He writes them on a scrap for you, in case your head forgets. He tells you a steady fact while the sand falls. Printed almanacs in this era often feature these charts as standard tools. People buy them with their bread. They hang them by the beds. They make notes on them. The little man with stars is as common as the striped pole. He is the body turned into a sky map that a whole town can read. Even the barber you saw with the cups peeks at one. He will not say so, but he does. He shows you one more page. Critical days, it says in neat letters, 7s, 14s, 21s. The old books call them crisis points, tied to the moon's walk. He marks them beside your symptoms. He plans your broth and your walks around them. Rest on the 14th, he says. I will come to you on the 15th. If the fever bends, we bend with it. The cat hops to the table and sits squarely on the almanac. It blinks like a priest, flicks its tail over Scorpio. The surgeon chuckles and moves the tail. Joke 2. You try to look wise while counting on your fingers, and the cat seems wiser while doing nothing. He pulls a drawer and lifts a small knife. The blade glints. The handle is smooth. He sets it down again. Not tonight, he repeats. He takes out a bowl and pours a cooling drink instead. Barley water, violet syrup, petal of a rose. The mix shines, tastes like a garden in fog. He adds a few seeds of coriander to add some heat. He tells you to breathe slowly for an hour before bed. He tells you to keep your head shaded tomorrow. He has a quirky tool in his book. It is a little wooden hand with a pointing finger. It fits in his charts to mark a day. He calls it a witness. He nudges it along the dates like a toy. He seems half serious, half amused. He has a fondness for small things that organize time. He taps the witness into the morning and nods. Here, he says, we meet when Jupiter smiles. He writes you a note for the barber-surgeon. Bleed from the basilic vein, it says. A gentle cup. He draws the moon phase next to the words. He signs with a symbol that looks like a star caught in a net. He sprinkles a pinch of sand to dry the ink. The scratch of the quill is a cat's purr in paper form. Historians still debate whether most surgeons truly believed the stars compelled their actions, or whether the clock and calendar provided rhythm and calm to a risky task. He tells you a small story as he seals the note. A man once rushed in on a Mars hour and begged for a cut. The surgeon refused. The man went down the lane and found a more eager hand. The bleeding turned hard. The scar lingered. The man came back, sheepish and sore. The surgeon shrugged and wrote him a calm plan with tea and walks. The scar healed. The man learned to love Thursday afternoons. Is it the stars? Is it the pause? The surgeon smiles and says, pick the kind hour, and the hand stays kinder. You can agree to that. He steps to the door and tilts his head at the sky. The moon peers between roofs like a shy coin. You think of the beak mask and its long nose. You think of the trepan and its careful circle. You think of the cups that kissed your back, the Hollywood stove, the clove on your gum, and the pebble of theriac that sits in your pocket like a promise. All of them had timing. All of them had pace. This room says the clock is larger than the wall. He tucks the almanac into a sleeve. He pockets the paper wheel. He straightens the chart with the starry man and smooths a corner. He gives you a simple bow. He tells you to sleep with your head a little raised. He tells you to wait for the good hour. Joke 3. He bans the Saturn hour for cheer, and you quietly ban Mondays for the same reason. You step back into the lane. The night is quiet, like a held breath. From a house behind you comes a low cry, then another, softer and deeper. A midwife's voice floats out, calm as a tide. You follow the sound. The cat leads, tail up like a small banner. A candle burns in a high window. A charm hangs over the lintel, folded neatly with red thread. Your hand finds the note marked for Jupiter. Your feet find the door. You push it with your palm, and warm air and whispering women slide over your skin like a blanket you did not know you needed. You move into the candlelit room, and the air changes. It is warm and close. Clean linens hang by the hearth. A kettle hums. Women sit in a small circle, their talk low and steady, like a stream under ice. The midwife lifts her head. She has calm eyes and sleeves rolled neatly. Her hands smell of lavender and smoke. She nods, and the room lets you stay by the wall. A birthing stool waits near the bed. It has 2 handles and a crescent seat. The mother leans forward on it, breathes in, breathes out, and squeezes the midwife's fingers. The midwife counts each wave and rubs her back with warm oil. The bed is close by, piled high, ready for the rest that comes after. You catch the slow rhythm of the room. In, hold, release. It is a tide. Your own breath joins, easy and soft. On a chair sits a folded parchment with red thread. The midwife calls it a girdle. It carries prayers to Saint Margaret, a helper in hard hours. She wraps it gently around the mother's middle and unties it when a wave crests. It is old and loved and used by many. On the table is a little book with woodcuts of a baby turning shoulder, head, and hand. You see the title on the first page, The Rose Garden, a 1500s manual by a man named Rosslin. That book travels across Europe in this age. Midwives read it, husbands peek. It is a plain fact of the time, sitting here with oil and towels. The midwife holds a small cup to the mother's lips. Honey water, a pinch of cinnamon, a bit of orange peel. She does not rush. She watches the mother's face more than the sand glass. She murmurs to the baby as if the child already listens. She checks the cord basket, the clean thread, and the warm cloth by the fire. A neighbor fans the air with a sprig of rosemary, not because the room stinks, but because the smell says safe. The wave builds. The room leans in, the midwife guides, steady as a pier. No shouting, no show, just breath, hands, and time. The mother groans, deep and low, the sound of a strong door opening. Then a new voice answers, sharp, wet, sure of itself. The circle moves at once but without hurry. The midwife lifts the child to her chest, rubs the back, and listens for that quick drum of tiny ribs. A cloth takes its first breath. A cord meets the clean thread and a sharp blade. The cry steadies and softens. Everyone exhales at once. The midwife holds up a thin veil clinging to the child's face, clear as a bubble. She smiles. A call, she says. A lucky sailor, if it is kept. She dries it, folds it, and slips it into paper. Sailors buy such keeps at this time. They say the call keeps the sea from swallowing. Quirky? Yes, but coins change hands for it. The mother laughs and says the baby is not going to see yet. The midwife laughs too and tucks the paper away. She wraps the baby in linen bands, neat and snug. Swaddling is the fashion. Arms tight, legs long. The baby blinks like a wise bean and then sleeps. The mother lies back on the warm bed and drinks a cup of hot spiced ale called caudle. The room is proud but quiet. This house will lie in for a month, as many do. Visitors will bring broth and good bread. Windows will stay shut on cold days. A charm may hang above the bed. All simple, all steady. Historians still argue whether midwives faced broad, special blame in which trials or whether that link is thin and tangled by region and rumor. Here, tonight, the midwife is the most trusted person in the house. Her word is weather. Her hand is law. You step into the passage to breathe and find another small room open. A man sits on a bench with his arm held close. A bone setter kneels beside him. No fuss. A bowl of egg whites shines on the table. Strips of linen sit in a neat pile. A sprig of comfrey, the plant they call knit bone, waits in a cup. The bone setter's fingers move with care. He feels along the wrist. He talks the man through a count. He pulls quick and clean. The joint slides, then settles. The man breathes out a word you pretend not to hear. Joke one. You almost say tada, but your jaw chooses life. The bone setter lays willow splints along the arm and paints the bandage with egg white and flour. It dries to a shell. He smooths a mash of comfrey over the skin near, not on, the break. He ties a sling and pins it with a tidy knot. He pours the man a sip of poppy water and writes a note. Cool cloth, high arm, no bragging. He murmurs a brief prayer under his breath as he tucks the tail of the band. He is careful with both fiber and faith. He tells you families pass this work down. Mothers to sons, uncles to nieces. Some track every field break in a parish by memory alone. Many fix what they can and call in a surgeon only for the worst. A plain truth, bone setters are everywhere in this age. Farmers trust them, so do weavers and sailors. Historians still argue whether their results beat the official shops for simple fractures or whether the praise swelled in stories told by fires. The sling looks steady either way. He shows you a trick he learned from an older woman. Spider silk on a cut to help it clot when nothing else is near. He does not push it, but he keeps it in mind. He smiles at your face. Yes, he says. Spider houses. Better than empty hands. Quirky, but gentle. You drift back to the birth room. The mother sleeps soft as a folded towel. The baby makes a mouse noise and goes still. The midwife tucks a folded charm under the pillow. It is a small square with letters in a curious grid. She says it keeps fevers away and nightmares at bay. You have a paper too. It holds the Jupiter hour for tomorrow. You also have the clove for your tooth, the pebble of theriac, the star for a drop of laudanum, and a tiny tree inked by the stovekeeper. Your pockets feel like a museum you can hug. The midwife presses a sprig of rosemary into your hand. For your way home, she says. You thank her. You thank the bone setter. The cat circles your ankles and decides to stay here, near the warmth, because the cat is not a fool. Joke 2, you tell it and you will leave a review anyway. Yawns. You step into the night. The lane is quiet. Fog lifts like thin silk. You pass the striped pole and the apothecary's door. You smell vinegar and clove on your sleeve. You pass the place where the beaked doctor tipped his cane. You touch your pocket and feel the pebble you have not used. You think of the circles on your back, now only a memory. Your head is light, your jaw cared for. Your feet remember the zodiac man and choose a gentle pace. Your heart, warm with stove heat and a baby's first cry, slows to match the night. At home, you set a folded charm under your pillow as the midwife did. You tuck the Jupiter note in your window frame so you'll see it at dawn. You put the pomander on the table. You draw the curtains. Joke 3. You promise your bed you will not test any mercury in it. Your bed forgives you and says nothing. Let the room grow softer now, and let the day slip into the seams of the quilts, and let the old city fold itself small outside your window, because you are inside the gentlest part of the night and nothing needs you at this moment. Not the bells, not the lanes, not the careful hands in those candlelit rooms. You can let your breath find that slow, easy count you liked in the birth room. You can feel how your shoulders ease when you remember the rosemary, and the warm oil, and the even voices that never asked you for anything but time. And you can let those voices drift farther away until they are only a hum, like a fan turned low in a calm house. The odd tools and bright jars can set themselves back on their shelves. The beak masks can hang by the door. The cups can cool. The furnace can quiet to ash. And the star on your little note can glow just enough to keep you company without waking you, because you have walked a long lane full of kind work and courageous guesses. You have come home with a pocket of small comforts that ask nothing heavy from you. The cat can curl on the chair. The charm can rest under your pillow. The pomander can lend a faint trace of lemon to the dark. And your thoughts can lengthen like shadows at dusk, low and gentle, with no sharp corners at all. So lie back and let your eyes half close and then close, and picture the river sleeping under its bridge, and the stoves going out one by one. The last midwife washing her hands and smiling at a quiet bed, and let it all fade to a soft gray and then to a softer dark, and know that you are safe and you are warm, and the longest part of the night has passed, and the kindest part is here, and you can rest now and you can fall easy and slow into sleep.